For more than 300 years, sailors have told stories in hushed tones. Stories about a phantom ship, cursed to sail the oceans forever, bringing disaster to all who see it. Well, today, we're diving headfirst into those churning waters to explore the world's most famous and, frankly, most persistent maritime legend, the Flying Dutchman. And our story starts in a very specific place, off the Cape of Good Hope. It's been called a graveyard that refuses to stay silent. It's a place where the line between the living and the dead just feels impossibly thin. And it's right here that this legend really takes hold.
So let's get into it. What are people actually seeing in these stormy waters? This is Act 1, The Cursed Cape, and we're starting with the chilling descriptions of the phantom ship itself.
What's absolutely wild is how the reports stay the same, for centuries. The description is almost always identical. An old Dutch merchant ship just appears out of a thick mist. Its sails aren't white and full, but torn, shredded ribbons fighting against a wind that nobody else can feel. And then, just as suddenly as it arrived, it vanishes back into that gray, hungry sea. It's a vision that is terrifyingly consistent.
Now, you can't have a ghost ship without a ghost captain, right? In Act 2, the captain's Defiance, we're going to meet the man at the helm and get to the bottom of how this whole curse even started.
So meet Captain Hendrik van der Decken. According to the legend, this was a man completely consumed by greed. He was so obsessed with rounding the Cape and getting his payday that he was literally willing to defy God and nature to make it happen. You have to understand, his defiance, it's the very engine of this whole nightmare.
You can actually trace the curse back to a single, desperate moment in 1680. Van der Decken, caught in a killer storm, supposedly cursed God and swore he'd round the Cape even if it took him till Judgment Day. And just 3 months later, the first ghostly sightings begin and ships start sinking. The key here, the really chilling part, is that his punishment is eternal. He's doomed to sail forever, completely locked in that one single moment of defiance.
Now, I know what you might be thinking. This all sounds like a classic tall tale sailors would tell, right? But it gets a whole lot harder to dismiss when you start looking at who was seeing it. So for Act 3, a royal sighting, we're digging into the credible accounts that give this legend some serious weight.
Look, these aren't just 1 or 2 random reports. We're talking about dozens of documented encounters. You've got whaling crews in 1835, and then there's the 11 sailors on the HMS Inconstant in 1881 who all saw it at the same time. But maybe the most famous sighting of all happened in 1795 aboard the HMS Bacchante. Why? Because one of the witnesses was Prince George of Wales, the man who would become King George V, and he actually wrote about it in his personal diary.
And this right here is the biggest problem for skeptics. These weren't just the ramblings of a few drunk sailors. The witnesses were often Royal Navy officers, educated men, even royalty. These are highly credible people with everything to lose by making up stories whose detailed and sober accounts make this whole thing incredibly hard to just brush off. Okay, but if you think that's wild, get this. The most staggering account might be from 1939. At Glencairn Beach, more than 60 people, let me say that again, over 60 people, all at the same time in broad daylight, watched the phantom ship glide silently across the water before just fading away into nothing. 60 people. So if testimony that incredible, how on earth does science try to explain it? It's time for Act 4, Science versus Superstition. Let's see how the rational theories hold up against this legend. All right, so the number one scientific explanation you'll hear is something called a fata morgana. It's a really complex kind of mirage. Basically, light bends through different air temperatures and can make ships or even coastlines that are way over the horizon look like they're floating or stretched out and distorted. It definitely could explain a ghostly-looking ship. But here's the problem. A fata morgana doesn't really explain the incredible detail people report seeing up close. Other theories, like bioluminescence, glowing plankton, can't explain a solid-looking ship seen in the middle of the day. And the idea of old shipwrecks surfacing, well, that doesn't explain how people see a ship that's actively sailing against the wind. See, every single theory seems to have a massive hole in it. And that brings us right back to that 1939 sighting. Really, can an atmospheric trick, a mirage, make over 60 different people see the exact same 17th century ship with the exact same torn sails? Science has a really, really tough time coming up with a satisfying answer for that one. But here's where the story takes a darker turn.
This isn't just about passively seeing a ghost. Seeing the Dutchman is considered an omen. In Act 5, An Omen of Doom, we're going to explore why a sighting is believed to be a death sentence. This, right here, is what makes the legend so utterly terrifying. It's not just about seeing a ghost ship. It's about what happens after you see it. It's seen as this harbinger of doom, a curse that latches onto you and follows you like a hungry shadow, infecting the fates of anyone who crosses its path.
Let's go back to that royal sighting on the HMS Bacante for a second. The very first sailor to spot the Dutchman? Well, just a few hours later, he fell from the top of the mast and plunged to his death on the deck. It's this chilling pattern, tragedy following a sighting, that has really cemented this ship's horrifying reputation. So, after all that, where does it leave us? We have credible witnesses and scientific explanations that just fall short. So we enter our final act, the eternal wake, and the very unsettling space where this legend continues to live.
And that's really the heart of it, isn't it? The Flying Dutchman exists in this uncomfortable gray area where our rational theories, they almost work, but they just crumble when you put them up against centuries of detailed, consistent, and credible testimony. They just don't fit the reality of what people have seen.
So what does it all mean? What are we supposed to take away from a ghost story that simply refuses to be debunked or forgotten? Does it prove that the sea holds secrets we just can't explain? Or maybe it shows that some stories, some warnings about pride and defiance, are just so powerful they end up creating their own reality. The legend lasts precisely because there are no easy answers.
And so, the story ends right back where it began. The Dutchman is still out there, sailing its eternal wake, a permanent fixture in our darkest imaginations, forever challenging that thin line between what we know for sure and what we secretly fear might just be true.